when the Adventure Force Tetrashot came out, everybody thought the same thing. This is going to be a chain, a 12-round chain, 4-shot shotgun. And we were all incredibly disappointed. For good reason. This thing had mediocre performance, the air restrictor system was bad, and the internals and plastic are low quality. But not wanting that to get in the way of my dreams, I thought I could mod the Tetrashot to be giving 4-shot shotgun performance. Little did I know this would be one of the most complex, exhausting, and expensive mod projects I have ever embarked on, going all the way back into 2021. However, I do have, finally, a working Tetrashot shotgun. So, I'm going to break down all of the extremely tiring, time-consuming, and expensive parts that make this hunk of junk work. Let's get into it. Alright, so let's start with the external changes that I made. So, obviously, the biggest ones are the screw and washer, which goes all the way through into some blocks of wood. We'll get into that in the internals. This piece of metal that I've bent around to hold, and a hose clamp on the end. The main reason that these are all here is to keep this back end closed, because after an amount of time and with an additional spring load, the shell, being the low quality and very thin plastic that it is, wants to separate. So these things are just to keep that in place so that way I can actually catch and fire. Another one that you'll be able to see once I open this is I've actually taken, you can actually kind of see it right there. Hold on, let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so right here, these pieces are pieces of a gift card that I had that I cut and then sanded down. And the main reason these are here is so that it puts, it presses the chains. Hold on, let me break off one of these chains for a quick second. So the chains, when you, as I drop it, fantastic. So the chains, as you'll see, going between here and, you know, this piece of foam is what creates the seal, the fire. Now, I was having a lot of issues, most likely because I modded it and that took out the air restrictor, so it's firing from the whole tube at once and all that stuff, where the chains would feed unreliably, and I figured out that it was because there would be a small gap in between the end of this and the foam, and it wouldn't create that seal. So the credit cards basically push it against that foam so that we always get that seal on. However, the downside is it does create a little bit of reliability problems with the chains cycling. However, that will require a bit of tuning. I'm thinking of sanding it down and doing some of the backings. That is the of my issues right now. So anyway, with that done, with the externals, basically those are the main external changes. Let's get into the internals. Alright, so one look into this thing and you can tell it is the epitome of jank. Just to break this down, due to my incessant need of trying to fix my first Tetrashot, when I encountered a lot of these problems, I tried to circumvent them and then ran into more problems. So, I'm going to break down a lot of the problems that I saw and why I've made a lot of the changes that I have. So, obviously, the first one is the original plunger is gone. It's not being used anymore. And the main reason is because the original one has a fatal flaw where it's made out of the same plastic as the body. See, there are two main types of plastic that are used in this blaster. The orange types, like these types, are a lot more hard and durable plastics, whereas the ones of the body, these yellow ones, including this one, is made out of this plastic that's really soft yet brittle. It's some of the worst plastic I've ever seen. I could probably snap pieces off with my hand if I wanted to. So, when I got my new one, or second Tetrashot, sorry to mod, the main thing I knew was I had to reinforce the plunger. So, as you can see, I took a bunch of epoxy, specifically JB Clear Weld, and wiring, and just filled it all up in there. And then I stuck a nail through this post because this was where it had broken last time. And I was just hoping if I filled it up with enough epoxy, enough metal reinforcement, I could circumvent that problem. Unfortunately, as you can see, it broke at that exact same spot. However, the difference is, unlike last time, I now have the tools and the materials to fix it. So I took an acetal rod that I had from a previous project and turned that down as best I could to the length of the plunger. Cut to picture or video of that here. And then after that, it was just a lot of carving with the bandsaw, the sander, and files until it fit in the plunger tube and this whole contraption, and it worked very well. Spring, I'm running the stock spring and a double down spring nested inside of it. Then the plunger is basically the same except for the fact that the air restrictors are knocked out. Hot glue here and here just to keep that from slipping off all the time. Next big thing, we'll move over to here. So this block of wood is just to have something for the screw that was on the shell that you saw on the externals to have something to grip to pull it together. These pieces of wood here are to prevent the shell body from flexing due to this catch spring and the amount of force that this is pulling on this catch spring. This prevents it from pulling here and flexing the shell this way, and the spring over time just pushing it down. So that's these two pieces of wood. The catch itself is also made out of that same acetal, because the new one obviously just didn't hold up because you got acetal versus cheap ABS. You're gonna have a bad time with the ABS. Next thing is this whole mechanism, which I had also reinforced because I had an issue of that breaking too in the original, and I had reinforced it very well. The last one I had snapped like here, thereabouts, maybe there, can't remember. But as you can see, I filled it up with a lot of JB Clear Weld. However, it broke here this time because I was kind of stupid and didn't think, oh, this is hollow, I should probably reinforce this with epoxy. And this was the thing that gave out eventually. So then it was to fixing that. The problem is this whole mechanism here is very complicated and 3D enough that I can't really machine this well. So I basically just cut it here. I made this piece out of a sheet of POM. And then I took a piece of the acetal rod that I had shaved down and used 4 pieces, 4 screws and 3 screws and a nail here, 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 and here, and a crud ton of hot glue to fix it in place and keep it really rigid, really sturdy. Moving to over here, this piece is, sorry, let me just unscrew this. This is a first, a blaster breakdown and my mod components. This is a first, obviously, being the second video on my channel, and the fact that it's me breaking down a custom mod. So, anyway, it changes here. So, this piece is a piece that basically allows this, which rotates this piece, which rotates the chamber. It makes it so that it rotates the chamber after every single time that you prime forward. Shout out to Mongoose Jake. I want to say his name is. I think so. If not, I'll put up something here correcting me, but pretty sure it's Mongoose Jake. Who showed how he made this piece. That gave me the idea of how this system initially worked. So anyway, moving, just setting some of these things to the side. So another component which I don't want to remove because it's really annoying to put everything in this system back together. But there is under this, filled up with a bunch of hot glue and a piece of a gift card, because this piece has a retention spring. I don't know why it has a retention spring, because they didn't need to make it have a retention spring, but the downside of that is that over time, as it's going back and forth, it actually cuts into this plastic, because it's resting on one of these thin walls, and it actually like scoops into it and then prevents it from working. So I just decided I would prevent that issue entirely and just reinforce that. Here, moving over here, this is a nail instead of the screw going through, because I had this happen tonight. I was priming it, and finally the entire dart post broke in multiple places after I kept reinforcing it. So I put a nail all the way through to the very bottom, and then reinforced it with wood and hot glue all around it. As you can see in there, once again, I would take this apart, but it's really annoying to get put back together. But you can see, just a lot of hot gluing and custom cutting wood, sanding and filing it down to fit the shape that it needs to be for it to work properly. And then another minor change is right here. You'll see I just filled this up, and it's hollow on this side as well, on the other side, with hot glue, just to help reinforce it more so it's more sturdy. It gives less, it bends less, because getting this thing to prime reliably every time is a nightmare. So you want to reduce any sort of flexing or bending that you can for it to be able to fire reliably. That's about it for the mods I did. It is I say it's simple, but I say it's simple because this is the second one of these I have, and I had to work out, and I know this mechanism and everything front to back. I had to mod, and I had to try to use the limited materials I had at my college to fix my original one, so I had a lot of ideas of what to do here. So this all makes sense to me, but it obviously does not make a lot of sense to people who are seeing it for the first time. So I apologize if I'm not explaining things to the best capacity, but I'm trying here. I'm really trying. So anyway, this thing, performance-wise, is shooting about 25 feet, which is good. That's around where I want it. It's shooting 4 darts at once. I can't make excuses. I've got 2 chains now, especially, and that's around where I want it for HVZ. That's the main reason to be using this. Is it slow and crunchy to fire? Absolutely. Does it need a lot more tuning? Absolutely. Will this probably break again somewhere else? Absolutely. But that is water under the bridge right now. Oh, also, just shoehorning it in before I move on to the conclusions. This is a screw, obviously, with like an inbuilt washer thing that I shaved down. And the main reason I did it on this is because I had to use a broken shell for my first one, so I didn't destroy my other one. And I had to use custom pieces of wood to make these walls on the other shell. Hold on a sec, let me show you. See, right there, basically. So, the problem with that is that it wants to wiggle everywhere, and this was a problem I had with the first one too, even before those walls got destroyed. Was that this piece would slip over the plunger and the plunger rod, and then go forwards, and then you can't prime it anymore because it's not pushing against it. It's a terrible design, especially considering all the load-bearing pieces are at right angles. But anyway, this keeps this piece from pushing up and above it, so that way everything stays locked in really nicely. So anyway, I'm going to put this back together, and we're going to wrap this up with my final thoughts. So, what are my thoughts on the Adventure Force Tetrashot? Is it a good blaster? No. Is it a reliable blaster? Also no. Is it very cheap? Yes. Now, what are my thoughts on my mods to it? Is it a reliable blaster? No. Is it a pain in the ass to have to constantly open this up to fix it? Also, yes. Is this a very fun blaster to plink around with and have a hoot of a time? Yes. So, even though this was very expensive, even though I've spent tens of hours on it, probably nearing into the hundreds at this point, I'm happy with it. I am pleased with it. I have fun with it. It's one of those things where you get emotionally attached to the blaster, and even though it doesn't make sense to mod it, I did it anyway. I had a blast doing it at the end of the day. So, I don't have anything else to say, really. Keep on the lookout for my my next video when it comes out next week, and until then, I'll see you.